Dobro večer, dobrodošli još jedno izdanje filmske glazbe ovdje na Radio Stojan u nedjelju navečer, nikad drugačije nego točno sada. Puno hvala Đulijanu Marinkoviću koji je nekim čudom i nekom vezom uspio nabaviti ovo što sada slušamo. Glavnu temu iz novog nastavka serijala Ratova zvijezda Georgea Lucasa, naslovna tema Revenge of the Sith, s kojom smo otvorili današnju emisiju.
Filmska glazba.
Something's happening. I'm not the Jedi I should be.
Know the power of the dark side, Anakin.
Very dangerous putting them together. I don't think the boy can handle it.
The Republic will be reorganized into the First Galactic Empire!
The boy you trained, gone he is, consumed by Darth Vader.
You were the chosen one! The Jedi turned against me. Don't you turn against me?
Anakin, you're breaking my heart.
Rated PG-13.
Something's happening. I'm not the Jedi I should be. I want more.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi.
This boy's future is.
You're not all powerful.
Well, I should be. Someday I will be.
Lord Vader.
Yes, Master.
Rise.
For 28 years, Star Wars has captured our imaginations.
Hello there.
On May 19th,
This is where the fun begins.
join the celebration of a lifetime.
Do it.
The final installment of the epic Star Wars saga. Destroy the Sith. We must. Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, rated PG-13. The saga is complete May 19th.
This is where the fun begins.
Oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
Who's on the move? Soon I will have a new apprentice.
What have I done?
He has become a very great threat.
You were the chosen one! No!
Rated PG-13.
Za početak, da najavim što ćemo večeras moći slušati u UFO nautici. Moći ćemo slušati jednu radijsku emisiju koja se emitira u Engleskoj, takozvani XFM News, gdje postoji jedna radijska emisija Bounty Hunter, a cilj u toj emisiji je da razni slušatelji pokušavaju dovući što poznatiju osobu u eter, da nazove samu tu radijsku emisiju, ta neka poznata osoba, i što osoba bude utjecajnija i poznatija, na kraju će taj slušatelj koji je uspio takvu osobu dovući u eter osvojiti 10.000 funti. Ono što je zanimljivo je da je tijekom tog Bounty Hunter natjecanja nazvao i Chris Martin, znači član grupe Coldplay. Međutim, On sam nije bio premija u tom telefonskom pozivu, već je on dovukao uz sebe Stevena Spielberga, koji je trebao predstavljati upravo tu poznatu osobu koja se javlja. I ono što je zanimljivo je da je tijekom tog razgovora Steven Spielberg govorio o nekim svojim filmskim planovima, kao i o novom projektu Rat svjetova, o 4. nastavku Indiana Jonesa, a ono što je bila ekskluziva, dakle, to je da je Steven Spielberg i napravio mini recenziju Revenge of the Sith. Pa evo, za početak poslušamo kako je to izgledalo na radiju XFM News.
Radio Kronike UFO Nautike.
Pitam se što majmuni misle o Boeingu 747 koji lete iznad njihovih glava.
A u današnje vrijeme je izuzetno teško izgleda skrivati informacije.
Nalazi se u izvješću američkih zračnih snaga, takozvanom projektu Blue Book.
Da, to je projekt koji su ukidali pa su ga ponovo otvarali, mislim to je ono cijela muljada jedno oko toga.
Koje mitove majmuni smišljaju u vezi s ljudskim zrakoplovima? Hoće li jednog dana potomci majmuna odbaciti mogućnost postojanja ljudskih NLO-a?
Radio Kronike UFO Nautike.
It's 6:27 in the morning. We do have a very special bounty hunter on the line. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we were very lucky to have a special guest on the show. Chris Martin came in and we played a new song and it sounded fantastic, and congratulations to the band. Apparently they played Coachella Festival over the weekend. They were great and they've gone top 10 in America. Only the second British band to do this since the Beatles. So the albums are going to be absolutely huge. But Chris Smith has been looking on the web. We have someone very special online. Chris Martin is actually on the line now, and he should be in Los Angeles, and he has someone with us on the for the Bounty Hunter. Good morning, Chris Martin.
Hi, Christian. How are you doing?
I'm very, very well. So what's the time with you? Is it about 11:30 in the evening?
About 10:30 at night, you know, but this is a big deal for me because we got hammered last time on Bounty Hunter. But the guy we're going to do it for is such a special man that we've got to win the money, so I felt that it was necessary to come and get someone 10 times more special than me.
Well, right now, you know, I don't think there is anyone bigger in the world than you.
Believe me.
Really?
This man is big time. It's as big time as it gets. Well, I can't even believe I'm sitting with him, to be honest.
You're making me really nervous. You know, if Chris Martin calls in saying he's got a bigger star than him.
Ever in the world.
Chris, who have you got with you?
I've got with me the director of some of the best films of all time. If I say do-do-do-do, if I say War of the Worlds, Indiana Jones...
No.
I mean, you name it. It's crazy. It's none other than your main man, Steven Spielberg.
No way!
Yeah, seriously.
You can't have me...
Serious.
How come you sat next to Steven Spielberg at 10:30 in the evening?
Life is funny, man. But his name is Christian, you can say that.
I was sleeping 15 minutes ago. Wow.
So, I'm really sorry.
On my door, and Chris comes in, and he says there's this breakfast show. There's something happening in the UK that you have to be part of. And I'm crazy about this guy. I'll do anything for him. And it's also for a good cause, because we all know this person.
What? Who is this for? So this is really... we can't believe we're speaking to Steven Spielberg.
I told you 2 weeks ago I was going to knock you out.
We're stunned, you know. It's like 6:30 in the morning here in our studio in London, and we're chatting not only to Chris Martin, which is a big thing for us again, but also you've got Steven Spielberg with you.
Well, there it is. We're all here together. It's 10:30 at night. My wife and I have carpool at about 6:30 tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
This is for a very worthy cause, and we're crazy about Chris, and whatever we can do.
Yeah. So let me win it, please.
So listen, this is Chris Martin trying to win the money. And Chris, you obviously want all the money if you voted the winner, which I'm sure you will be, but, you know, we'll have to wait and see. To get a fair trade?
No. Well, we'll have to split. What, you mean the 5,000?
Well, I think, you know, if people vote for you as the winner, I think we'll give you the whole 15,000.
No. The 10,000 is very important. That's for this guy, Brian, our friend in England.
Yeah?
But,
however you want to split it, Chris Martin, it's entirely up to you.
We'll split it between me and Spielberg.
Get that movie, Coldplay the movie made.
Yeah, he needs it.
That Jurassic Park money, he's just not getting enough, is he?
No, the Jurassic Park money is gone.
What? You spent it all?
We just finished the house. It's gone.
It's all gone on front row tickets to go and see Chris's band, isn't it?
Yeah. It's all. Yeah. Exactly.
And so, Stephen, what are you up to now then? Apart from obviously being woken up in the middle of the night by an excited Chris Martin.
Well, I'm in post-production on War of the Worlds, which comes out all over the world. June 29th.
This is great. Steven Spielberg's really called in to plug his movie.
Yeah. July the 1st, I think it comes out here.
Yeah. Well, everyone's really excited about that, Stephen. I'm sure the movie's going to be amazing. And are you happy with it?
Yeah, it kicks butt. It's really good. It's very scary, very tense. Tom Cruise is great. It's we had a great time making it. We're still making it. We're still, finishing up the special effects.
Do you know what? I think it would have been quite terrifying to get Chris Martin to be in it as a kind of big android.
It nearly happened, but we were busy recording, as you know. And, maybe I'll be in War of the Worlds too.
But Chris Martin, why don't you ask Stephen if he let you be in Indiana 4?
Oh, yeah.
I did ask him. Don't bring up bad.
Sorry, I don't want to, I see your friends here. It's a bit awkward.
I think I'm here.
And Stephen, have you seen the new Star Wars?
Yes, I have.
And is it good? Can we get excited about it?
Yes, you can. I'll tell you something. I saw it last about a week and a half ago. Completely finished. And it's absolutely amazing. It's the best of the last 3 episodes. It's the best way you could possibly imagine George has ended this 6-episode series. It's just got a tremendous ending. It's very dark. You'll cry at the end. It's wonderful.
It's better than Wayne's World.
I was going to say, when you say it's got a dark ending, is it like the crying game and Darth Vader really is a lady?
Believe me, I've seen the movie, and Darth Vader is not a lady.
Okay. That's an exclusive given to us by Steven Spielberg.
I'm on it.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you, guys. Thank you very, very much for calling in.
Hey, Christian, listen, please don't let anyone beat this. Because this guy that, because we've got to win this money for Brian, our friend in London. Please don't let anyone beat this. How can anyone possibly beat it? It's like having an alien.
Well, listen, Chris.
They'd beat it if they got George Lucas to call in.
Well, because all I've got to say, by the way, the big thing you're up against that happened last week, and we've got in the last 4 days of Bounty, I do have to let you know that the lead singer, Dennis Seaton, of Musical Youth, did speak to us on Friday.
Okay, we'll take second. He's
been thwarted again.
And we've got Hollywood business to attend to.
Do you mean you're going to go and get drunk?
We've got coke to do, execs to snort. There's so much to do, it's crazy.
Who's that giggling in the background? I want to know who else is there.
I know, who is that?
Yeah, there's other people in the background as well. I think
I can't tell you that, otherwise you'll want to give us millions. We have to go, man, we have to go.
Well, listen, Chris Martin, and please, thanks, Steven Spielberg, so much. It's been fantastic to speak to you both.
My pleasure.
Christian, thanks a lot, man.
Thank you very much to both of you giving up your time for Bounty Hunter.
Take care.
Thanks.
Chris Martin, you're a star, and you, Steven Spielberg. Look forward to War of the Worlds.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye, L.A. Did that just happen?
I think it did.
Radio Kronike UFO Nautike.
Radio Student 100,5.
I know what's been troubling you. Listen to me. Only through me can you achieve a power greater than any Jedi. I can feel your anger. It makes you stronger.
Rated PG-13.
U emisiji ste UFO Nautika, a do prije par minuta mogli smo čuti kako je to izgledalo na britanskoj radio postaji XFM News u okviru radio emisije Bounty Hunter, gdje je izravno u eteru Steven Spielberg komentirao svoje nedavno gledanje 3. epizode Georgea Lucasa Ratovi zvijezda Revenge of the Sith. Idemo dalje sa reemitiranjem priloga koji idu u susret na dolazećoj premijeri. Pripremio sam nešto što je u svakom slučaju ekskluziva. Imat ćete prilike poslušati nekoliko izvadaka sa velikog filmskog festivala u Cannesu, gdje je gostovao sam George Lucas i cjelokupna ekipa filma Revenge of the Sith. Dakle, moći ćete čuti klip dolaska George Lucasa i ekipe pred kino, zatim samu konferenciju za tisak i intervju cijele ekipe, što znači moći ćete osjetiti cjelokupnu atmosferu koja je bila aktualna u Cannesu prije samo 3 dana na velikoj svjetskoj premijeri filma Revenge of the Sith.
Something's happening. I'm not the Jedi I should be.
Fear of loss is a path to the dark side.
We do not grant you the rank of master.
They don't trust you, Anakin.
The Jedi turned against me. Don't you turn against me?
Anakin, you're breaking my heart.
You were the chosen one! No!
Radio Kronike UFO Nautike.
Radio Student 100,5.
For the life without Star Wars?
Oh yes, definitely ready. We're going to be doing some TV shows, so it's not going to disappear completely.
Do you realize the importance of your saga in the movie history?
Well, it's hard when you're in the middle of it. You know, I think my kids will understand it more than I do.
What did you want to give to the people through this saga?
Pardon?
What did you want to give to the audience through this saga?
Well, I hope that young people find it helpful in their, transition into adulthood.
You tried everything in this movie and now you're in Cannes. How do you live that?
I love it because the deal to make the movie was made here in Cannes when I was in the director's fortnight. And I went over to the Carlton Hotel and made a deal with United Artists to do American Graffiti and Star Wars. So I think it's appropriate that I finish it here.
Okay, millions of fans are expecting this movie all over the world. Is there some pressure on your shoulder?
No, the film's done. We've done the best job we can do. All that's left now is for them to pass judgment on the film. I think it's fantastic. Hopefully they will feel the same way. We had a great time doing it. Hopefully the fun that we had doing it shows through and they'll enjoy it.
Ils entament la montée des marches.
And they're going up the steps.
Pour la revanche.
For the revenge of the Sith.
Le dernier épisode.
The final episode.
De la guerre des étoiles.
Of Star Wars.
George Lucas très ému qui salue la foule.
George Lucas very moved. Just listen to the crowd.
Avec lui, nul autre, Anakin Skywalker. Ivan Christensen.
C'est du délire absolu.
Crowd going wild.
Rarement vu ça à Cannes.
Rarely seen this in Cannes.
Nathalie qui refait un tour devant les fans.
Nathalie going back to meet the fans, George Lucas shaking hands, saying thank you for your loyalty. Thank you for trusting me, thank you for being here. And they're going to go up the last steps now.
La dernière montée pour la saga de la guerre des étoiles.
Final few steps for Star Wars.
Les mains.
Jacob greeting the team. Thierry Frémaux. Véronique qui est là. Césaire on the cheek.
Kronike UFO nautike.
Radio Student 100,5.
George Lucas, Samuel Jackson, in front of the photographers.
Voilà, vous avez énormément de photographes. Les places étaient très chères aujourd'hui pour ce photocall.
Loads of photographs, people fighting for their positions. All the places are taken. Natalie Portman, Radius, who we'll see again in Cannes, in an Israeli film, Amos Gittai's film, Free Zone, which will be presented on the 19th of May. So she's here for two things.
Présent également, vous l'avez vu, alors Hayden Christensen, vous l'avez...
Hayden Christensen, you can see there.
Ian McDermott.
And I think I saw Ian McDermott.
Hayden Christensen.
Particularly young Hayden Christensen, who
toute la trame du scénario de George
has the
Lucas.
whole weight of the screenplay on his shoulders, and this incredible metamorphosis, going over to the dark side of the Force. Samuel Jackson, everybody's here in Cannes. I'm sure, George Lucas, it must be a really very special moment for you. I suppose coming to present the last episode of this saga, which is the history, is the story of your life in a way, almost. I mean, what sort of state of mind are you in, George?
Well, I'm very relieved that they finally have finished it, and it's now one movie instead of six. And it's fun to be back at Cannes, because many years ago, when I was at the Director's Fortnight here, is when I made the deal for Star Wars. And so it was born here, and I guess this is where the last big push is going to be, the last big presentation. Or the first presentation of the last film. Let's put it that way. Truth is, whenever you work on a film, you sort of create a little family, and you go through a lot of very intense things together, and it's always very sad when you finish. This one has gone on for 30 years, and we've had many endings to it. But it's still a sort of the same feeling you get as your family begins to drift away. But nobody ever disappears. We still see each other on holidays.
Well, I think just the storyline of what they're going through is so strong that it's easy to relate to emotionally. And we did have rehearsal on this one, which we did more rehearsal on this one than the others, and we worked together. And also, having worked with Hayden before and knowing each other better, and that really added to it as well, because I think there was sort of a deeper level of trust and understanding between us, and that definitely added to it. And I think it's really nice because those scenes give you sort of the other side to make it more ambiguous what evil means, because you see sort of a lighter, softer side to Anakin's, Hayden's character, and it really brings sort of a blurrier image of the line between good and evil.
Well, the thing is, as I say, when I did the first one, it was supposed to be one movie, and then it just got bigger, and I cut it into 3 parts. But it was always intended to start in episode 4 of a Saturday matinee serial, which meant you didn't get to see the beginning part of it. But in order to write that, I had to write a backstory for all the characters, so I knew where all the characters came. But they're kind of character profiles and things that rather than a story. And they're also, and then there's how the Republic became the Empire and stuff. So that sort of thing was what was the emphasis of the first part of the film, but it worked its way back from the original story. So the original story was written out of this, so it was very easy to link it up. The biggest problem I had is over the years I developed all kinds of side stories and little bits and pieces that had to be cut out because I had to focus on Anakin. It just kept... The problem always is, when you start in making movies, you always say, well, how can I write something that goes on for 2 hours? Especially if you come out of film school, you say, how can I find enough stuff to put in this thing? And then once you start making movies, you realize it's really the opposite problem, is you always end up with way too much, and you got to figure out how to keep cutting things down and making it more refined and more precise. But doing something like this is an unusual kind of movie because it goes over so much time. I mean, it's basically something I should have shot in 4 years, and it took me 30 to get it done. So.
Radio Kronike UFO Nautike.
Radio Student 100,5.
Is and whether you think that's an important element within what you were trying to say.
Well, because this is the backstory, and one of the main features of the backstory was to explain how the Republic became the Empire. At the time I did that, which was really during the Vietnam War and during the Nixon era, the issue was how does a democracy turn itself over to a dictator? Not how does a dictator take over, but how does a democracy and a Senate give it away? And so I went back into history and began to study a great deal about things like ancient Rome in terms of why did the Senate, after killing Caesar, turn around and give the government to his nephew? Why did France, after they got rid of the king and that whole system, turn around and give it to Napoleon? And it's the same thing in Germany with Hitler. And you sort of see these recurring themes where, you know, a democracy turns itself into a dictatorship. And it always seems to happen kind of in the same way, with the same kinds of issues of threats from the outside and needing more control and, you know, a democratic body, a Senate, not being able to function properly because everybody's squabbling and corruption and that sort of thing, which is indicated as you go through it, but that, you know, it's as you go through history, I didn't think it was going to get quite this close. So, you know, it's just is one of those recurring things. I hope this doesn't come true in our country. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. You know, I worked for 2 years on the original screenplay, and it got too big, and it started out as Anakin Skywalker and his 2 kids. And then eventually, after a lot of painful writing and rewriting and changing, I ended up with a movie that was way too big. And so I had to cut it into 3 movies. And out of that, everything grew. I mean, I certainly, contrary to popular belief, never thought that it would go beyond the 3 movies. You know, that note was made in 1977, and I said there were sequels, and there were 2 sequels that I'd already written. So the characters and the backstory and all that stuff had been written, but I felt that if I got through the 3, it would be a miracle, and that was going to be the end of it. Well, again, I see it all as one movie, and so I don't really pay too much attention how people like one chapter or another chapter. We have discovered in the last few years, actually, and it becomes more apparent all the time, is that we have 2 fan bases. One is over 25 and one is under 25. The over 25 fan base is loyal to the first 3 films, and they are actually in their 30s and 40s now, so that they're in control of the media, they're in control of the web, they're in control of everything, basically. So mostly what you're hearing from are people over 25 years old. The films that those people don't like, which is the first 2, actually are very fanatically adored by the under 25-year-olds. And if you get on the web and you listen to these conversations, they are always at each other's throats. And the devotion for each group is pretty much equal. And I think it's purely, I mean, I never even paid much attention to it until about a year ago. But it's like, you know, one group saying the Rolling Stones and the Beatles are everything, man, that rock and roll is the greatest thing you've ever heard. And other people saying, well, hip-hop is great. You know, that old folk stuff is no good anymore. And the people, the Rolling Stones fans saying hip-hop, I mean, God, you know, that isn't even music. So you get these 2 generational groups talking about the movies, and it just happens that one is older and expresses himself a little bit more loudly than the other group. So I'm curious to see what happens in about 10 years when that other group starts to get their voice. The rating, the film isn't that much different than the other films. It's got more of an emotional kick to it. But in terms of people getting arms and legs cut off, that happens in all the movies. And Return of the Jedi, you see Anakin all burned up. In this one, he catches on fire, but a lot of people have seen stuntmen running around with fire on. It's pretty routine. I think the PG-13 is more a reflection of the culture. The last film was a PG-13, and we convinced them to put it back to a PG. But the culture keeps getting a little bit more and more difficult. In certain countries, in Europe and stuff, they've all been mature. I mean, they've all been the equivalent of a PG-13, all of them. And so that's fine. I mean, my personal thing is I don't want people to bring their kids to something that they would feel comfortable with. I've always felt that a parent should sort of make that decision. All the ratings are as a way of informing them that this is not the fun kind of happy-go-lucky movie that some of the other ones were. But the biggest issue for me is, and it was in Empire Strikes Back, is that dad goes bad. And for a lot of kids, that's a pretty rough concept. I just saw the film a few days ago with a little 8-year-old and his dad were sitting in front of me. When the film finished and the titles came up, the little boy turned to his dad and said, "Don't worry, Dad, it's going to be okay. His son saves him in the end." And that thing is, I think, what most kids, when they see it, that's the only thing they really worry about.
Radio Kronike UFO Nautike.
Radio Student 100,5.
On May 19th, the Jedi must unite.
Oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
To fight the ultimate battle against the evil Sith Lord and his new apprentice, Darth Vader.
Oh, no.
Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
Remitirat ću sada još jedan nedavni prilog sa CBS-a koji se također odnosio na snimanje Revenge of the Sith.
The final Star Wars adventure soars into theaters May 19th, and fans worldwide are already standing in line for tickets. But sit tight for a special preview, because the Force is definitely with our Leonard Maltin, who is definitely no Wookiee rookie.
This one has a lot of fighting. This is sort of the climax of the first 3 movies. I believe Sam gave it a 12 out of 10.
With Revenge of the Sith opening in 2 weeks, I got to take a trip to Skywalker Ranch, and things are a little different there.
Sorry it's raining today. That must be murder on your fur.
Later, I hung out with Vader, Hayden Christensen, that is, who becomes the Dark Lord in Episode 3.
I've got to ask, what did it feel like when you put on the helmet?
Overwhelming, thrilling, exhilarating, saddening in a way. You know, it meant the end.
You're a young man with a life and a career in front of you, but you'll always be Anakin Skywalker. Say you're 65 and they wheel you out at the Star Wars convention, you know, to wave to the fans.
Yeah, no, I don't see that 65 for me. We'll hope things take a different path.
As for Jedi Master George Lucas, I challenged him to a speed round.
A road trip with Yoda or Han Solo?
I think Yoda would be easier to deal with.
I hope right you are.
Summer romance with Queen Amidala or Princess Leia?
Princess Leia is funnier.
I just assumed he's a Wookiee.
Stuck on an island with C-3PO or Chewbacca?
I think I'd pick Chewbacca because Chewbacca is based on my dog.
And he's great for those hard-to-reach places.
Have you tried books on tape?
Thank you, Leonard and Chewie.
I've missed you, Padme.
What is it?
Twisted by the dark side, young Skywalker has become.
You're going to kill him, aren't you?
Once more, the Sith will rule the galaxy.
You're a good person. Don't do this.
I'm doing it for you, to protect you.
You're breaking my heart.
Rated PG-13.
Nastavljamo dalje sa praćenjem svih okolnosti i detalja oko predstojeće premijere filma Revenge of the Sith. Dečki sa web sajta TheForce.net napravili su jednu jako zgodnu stvar, to jest rekapitulirali su sve dostupne recenzije na internetu koje su se pojavile oko filma. Podsjetimo se, prva recenzija vezana za film koja se pojavila na netu bila je od poznatog Kevina Smitha, a sada naravno tu već i more recenzija od ovih fanovskih pa sve preko mainstream recenzija. Dakle, sa svih strana, povezano i sa pres projekcijama filma, objavljuju se komentari, kritike i recenzije. Dakle, ekipa sa sajta The Force.net, kao što sam rekao, napravila je jedan odličan retrospektivni izvještaj. Inače, zaista preporučam za sve one koji duboko prate fenomen ratova zvijezda da se često posjete taj website Force.net ili poznati kao dnevna doza Star Warsa, definitivno jedan od vodećih fanovskih sajtova na svijetu koji donosi vijesti, multimedijalne vijesti o ratovima zvijezda zaista iz svih aspekata. Ekipa sa The Force.net i totalni vodič, univerzalni vodič za Revenge of the Sith.
Radio Kronike UFO Nautike.
Radio Student 100,5.
Hello and welcome to the podcast for TheForce.net. My name's Eric and I'm your host bringing you the latest in Star Wars news and events. And we're now into single digits. That's right, only 8 more days until most of us are standing in line at a theater somewhere, holding the tickets we purchased weeks ago online, hoping to get a decent seat for the last Star Wars movie we'll ever see in a theater for the first time, Revenge of the Sith. And as I promised, I've got some reviews for you guys. And since many of these reviews contain spoilers, I'm only reading portions of the reviews. So for the sake of full disclosure, none of these are full reviews, and there are parts where I'm editing a few words for the sake of content, but never to change their meaning. I'm just doing this so that you'll have a spoiler-free podcast episode, and yet you can still check out the reviews that have been posted online that contain spoilers. Also, Scott, one of the founders of TFN, has come up with a great parent's guide to Episode 3, which, considering some of the movie's content, might not be a bad idea for some of you with younger children. This too contains spoilers, so I'm giving you a spoiler-free version of that too. Now, if you haven't figured this out yet, I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here and there. That's just what I do. So I want to clarify where I'm coming from. I've read the book, I've seen the comic, I've watched more footage than what's available on the internet, but I have not yet seen the film. The people writing these reviews have, so take whatever I say with a grain of salt. Just wanted to clarify that. First off, let's cover the parental aspect real quick. You might want to be careful taking your kids to see this, depending on how young they are. Again, avoiding major spoilers, I can tell you that dead bodies are shown, a lot of them, and some of them are children, though they're not graphic. Many good guys die, and it's always at the hands of people they trusted. A moment of physical spousal abuse is shown, albeit a brief one. And some young children might also have issues given that Anakin, now the father of Luke and Leia, has betrayed everyone and has become evil. Some kids might have abandonment issues or wonder if their own daddy's going to do something like that. Things might be a tad bit intense for kids if their mother is pregnant. I know some of this probably sounds really silly and far-fetched, but I'm sure there are some kids out there who are going to have issues with all this, especially all the betrayal and the way Anakin, who's been the hero up until now, treats Padme and Obi-Wan. As for the visuals, the Emperor gets pretty scary looking, and of course there's what happens to Anakin at the end. That being said, I think it's only the really young ones who will have issues. Based on what I'm hearing and what Scott said so far, I don't think that any kids who have hit double digits will really have any problem coping with the film. As for the younger crowd, nobody knows your kids better than you do. Or I hope not, anyway. I mean, Scott and I are good guides, but we can't make your decisions for you. My advice would be to get a babysitter, go see the movie yourself, and decide on your own. On to the reviews. There are way too many reviews floating around at the moment for me to quote every single one in its entirety. Instead, I'm going to quote segments from the various reviews that have been posted so far. The vast majority of these come from people who attended the press screenings last Thursday, though a couple go back to about a week prior. First up is Robert Sanchez from IESB.net, whom I had the pleasure of meeting at the convention. He writes, Revenge of the Sith is the best of the prequels and second only to Empire Strikes Back. Without going through any spoilers, I want you to know that this is a great movie. This is a movie that we, as Star Wars fans, have been waiting for since Return of the Jedi. The movie starts out with action and is non-stop through the entire 2 hours. It's no surprise that this is the darkest of all the Star Wars films. This movie does deliver the best of special effects that ILM has to offer. Anakin's transition to Darth Vader is very emotional to watch, and once again Ian McDiarmid steals the show. He's just fabulous as Palpatine. There is no doubt that you want to see Revenge of the Sith, and make sure you see it in a theater that offers digital projection. That is the only way to go. Personally, I agree with Robert. If you can see it digitally, go for it. It's much better that way. I remember seeing Episode 2, the film print, first at the midnight showing, and then the following day at about 10 a.m. I saw it digitally, and it was just a world of difference. So if you can see it digitally, I highly recommend it. Next up is TFN's very own Scott Chitwood, though this review is taken from his post at comingsoon.net. He writes, Revenge of the Sith is probably the best of the 3 prequels. It takes everything that was good about Attack of the Clones and reduces everything that was bad about it. You have cool battles, Yoda's in a lot of action, more cool bad guys, and no Jar Jar. Well, at least no Jar Jar dialogue. That being said, you also still have some bad dialogue, slow scenes between the action sequences, and cheesy romantic moments. Fortunately, none of these weak points drags the film down like they did in Attack of the Clones. With everything said and done, I think my favorite Star Wars films, from best to worst, are The Empire Strikes Back, A New Hope, Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Jedi, Attack of the Clones, and The Phantom Menace. But ask me again in a year, and my ranking will most likely change. The acting this time around seems to be better for a prequel. Ian McDiarmid really steals the show as Palpatine. The way he manipulates Anakin's feelings is superbly done. From his look to his voice, it's both impressive and disturbing. McDiarmid also delivers a number of the lines with just the right amount of feeling to really irk you. Also stealing the show again is Yoda. Every scene he is in is great. His final confrontation scene ends up being the real impressive moment and almost upstages the final battle between Anakin and Obi-Wan. This is also probably the best Obi-Wan performance by Ewan McGregor. He shows so much more emotion this time around that you can't help but notice the difference. McGregor plays him with a lot of humor early on, and then with a lot of anger and regret towards the end. Natalie Portman is also pretty good as Padme. In the first half of the film, her performance is not that great because she's stuck doing only romantic dialogue with Anakin. However, as the film gets darker and darker, she's able to do a little bit more, and she does it well. The same pretty much goes for Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker. He's in top form when he's in action, brooding for the camera or raging. In Revenge of the Sith, there's a lot of that, as you would expect. I should also note that Jimmy Smits gets a lot more to do with Senator Bail Organa this time around. Unfortunately, there's no real standout action scene in this movie like there were in the previous prequels. Revenge of the Sith didn't really have one moment that stood out better than the others. None of them were jaw-droppers, but none of them were bad either. The effects are pretty much excellent across the board. I haven't been crazy about John Williams' work in this movie, but his score did stand out in a few key scenes. The opening scene had some great war drums that instantly set the tone of the film. There was some really great creepy music about halfway through the movie that shows things are really beginning their downward spiral for our heroes. I mentioned at the beginning I spoiled myself silly before seeing this movie. I don't think it hurt me at all while viewing the film. In fact, I think I had an advantage over other audience members because I found myself better able to understand some of the more confusing moments of the film. I also had a little more background on the characters and situations, which helped me considerably, and even knowing the entire plot, there were still a couple of surprises for me. The whole opening scene is different than either the novels or the comics depict. Revenge of the Sith does have its problems, though. First and foremost, it's a little hard to buy Anakin's turn to the dark side. He does so very abruptly. He goes from being a loyal Jedi to going over to the dark side within a few hours. Admittedly, Lucas had to turn him within the short running time of the film, but it didn't seem like a natural progression in the movie. It needed more time to develop. Overall, I think George Lucas has learned from his previous mistakes on the other films. While this is by no means a perfect movie, I think it'll please fans. That wraps up Scott's review. Scott hits on most of the complaints other people have voiced about the film, the most common being that Anakin's turn happened too quickly. I don't mean to get on a soapbox here, but I'm telling you guys, you might want to consider reading the book before seeing the film. Seriously, things will make a lot more sense if you do. Here's a review from one of Scott's colleagues from comingsoon.net, Blake Wright. He says, "The performances in Revenge of the Sith range from wasted to superb. On the plus side, my hat must once again be tipped to Ian McDiarmid as Chancellor/Emperor Palpatine. This is his movie, And again, he delivers a deliciously direct performance laced with just the right amounts of subtle arrogance as the Chancellor and full-on hellfire as the Emperor that makes the film a joy to watch when he's on screen. Ewan McGregor solidifies his role as Obi-Wan, a wise, unwavering Jedi that holds true to the Order even though his heart is clearly breaking at the loss of his apprentice to the dark side. Hayden Christensen is better here than in Clones, though there are still some moments of awkwardness, especially with Padme, that seem forced. His furrowed brow and brooding glare work overtime during the second half of the film, and it works. The effects in Revenge of the Sith gets top marks. ILM has made wondrous strides in the animation of Yoda. Where Attack of the Clones CG Yoda was very good, the Revenge of the Sith version is almost flawless. You can really find yourself forgetting that he's a digital rendering. The fight scenes were all turned up a notch as well, and there were plenty of them. Each had their own interest and appeal. The music of Revenge of the Sith was first-rate, if only because most of the main pieces were variations on the themes from previous films. Williams still deserves a lot of credit for bringing the extra level of intensity and drama to the storyline. What didn't work? My main beef with Revenge of the Sith is a bit on the selfish side. It was something that I wanted but did not get, and that was a revelation, an epiphany. I wanted the Luke, I am your father kind of jaw-dropping truth to be laid out there for all to see, but it didn't happen. What you see is what you get with this film, which is not necessarily bad, but I was personally in favor of finding out that, for example, Qui-Gon was a bad guy, but he wasn't. The one glaring weirdness was just how quick Anakin was talked into becoming Palpatine's apprentice. It would have been nice to see a lot more conflict going on there, but I suppose time is money. I remember back to one San Diego Comic-Con after Clones came out. McCallum showed up to talk about Episode 3 and promised the eager crowd that all of the questions would be answered. Hardly. And the film itself raised questions that it didn't answer, at least not directly. In all, it is better than Menace and Clones, but I won't go so far as to say that I'd put it ahead of Jedi or anywhere near the others. Fans will rejoice, it will make millions, and I will see it again. That's the end of Blake's review. I'd just like to comment for a second on something Blake said. While it's not necessarily a flaw with something that's in the movie, I think many people may be disappointed in what's not in the movie. I want to be very clear, from what I know of the film, most of the threads are wrapped up, but not every thread. I'm not trying to put a negative spin on things here, but I know that 99% of a person's enjoyment of a film has to do not with whether the film was good or not, but whether their expectations were met or exceeded. So don't expect a big plot twist, and don't expect all of the threads to be wrapped up. Here's a great review from Harry Knowles, who runs one of my favorite websites, Ain't It Cool News. This was a hard review to include here because Harry goes on for quite some time about his feelings on the movie, rather than what would be considered a traditional review. So I've had to chop it up quite a bit. I've also had to censor a bit for language too. But after you go see the movie, I highly recommend you hit ain'titcoolnews.com and check out his review. It's a good read. He says, I'm having a really hard time writing about this one. It's just so big, so full of literally everything that I've wanted to see in all the prequels, but crammed all into this one. This really is the big Michael Corleone episode of Star Wars. It's where all the traps are sprung, all the cards are laid out on the table, where everybody dies, all is lost, and evil rules the galaxy. That's what makes the film so hard to talk about, at least off a first viewing. Let me see if I can explain this. The film makes you powerless to change things. It's like sitting still for a tragedy right from the get-go, but unlike Titanic, you don't have it all spelt out yet. Unless you've read all the spoilers, and I don't really know what you spoiler lovers will think, just because for me, I knew basically what was going to happen, the broad strokes. I've gone out of my way to ignore as many spoilers as possible, which is a near impossible thing to do when you're being emailed by everyone on Earth 300 images a day, 40 reviews a day now, and we're sent all the books, comics, score, everything from publicity firms. I bought that talking Yoda toy, and the next thing I know, the little green guy's trying to tell me the story of Revenge of the Sith. It's so hard to be pure on this. There's just so much information out there, everywhere. Revenge of the Sith is a masterpiece. The final piece of the puzzle Lucas first presented me at age 6. 27 years later, the jigsaw is complete, and it's darn near the most tragically cool thing I've ever seen put to film. We won't see another like this. This is it. We'll see enormous sci-fi fantasy told with more focus and even grander visions in our lifetime, but we'll never care as much about a story like this one. For our generation, Star Wars is our mythology. The big story we lived to see told the first time. For those of you that were kids in lines in 1977 through to the coming weeks, I have to say it has been an absolute honor to do this with y'all. We all know where we each were at the opening of all these films. In 2 weeks, this is your last story. I will never see a new Star Wars movie with my father again. I'll see many more movies, but this is the last Star Wars. This one counts. This one is beautiful. This is the last one. Remember, this isn't a Star Wars movie to cheer for, to erupt into applause and call cool. If you really love Star Wars, this one is heartache. Not only is it the end of a nearly 30-year journey for us, it really is a story of how things got so bad that the good guys had to be a rebellion, where the Jedi had to hide, and how evil ruled the galaxy. That's the end of Harry's review. Okay, I just got to interject this real quick. It's hard enough to smoothly read somebody else's writing, but for a northerner to have to say y'all and just have it roll off of the tongue smoothly, I don't know, something about that just doesn't work. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry, make all the northerner jokes you want, it's not going to help. I gotta say, I agree with Harry. It's really hard to comprehend this, but think about it. Is anyone ever going to wait in line for a movie like this again? I mean, I can't imagine ever waiting in line for more than 2 hours for a movie again, even if it's something really incredible. But for episode 3, even though I got my tickets online a week or two ago, I'm actually showing up that morning for the line. Why? Just because. This is the last Star Wars. No, I'm not so desperate for a good seat that I feel I need to wait in line. I'm standing in line because this is the last time when I'll be able to walk up to a line for a movie and strike up a conversation with anyone in the line, all strangers, and have them be just as excited about seeing the film as I am. I'm doing this mainly because I won't be able to ever do this again. I predict that never again will a movie or a series of movies have this type of effect on pop culture, that there will be this sense of community standing outside of a theater again, especially given the advent of online ticket ordering. Lines are now extinct, and the lines maintained all around the country on May 18th will all be snuffed out hour by hour as various time zones reach midnight, and such lines will never again take place. So as Harry points out, there is great attachment to this film for many people, and seeing this film is as much about the end of an era of entertainment in our lives as it is the fictional era taking place in the film. Next up, we've got TFN's Josh Griffin, who writes, "It is perhaps paced awkwardly in places, and has the now infamous cheesy lines now and again, but this is clearly the part of the story Lucas was most anxious to share. Unmistakably, this is the meat of the backstory. We now get to see it in all of its glory. It is made more powerful by the setup of the earlier films, and for many they will find redemption here. The opening battle is fantastic. Visually, this film is near perfect. From the opening sequence to the very end, there is precious little that may look off. In fact, with all of the new worlds, characters, and vehicles, I think it's safe to say that ILM has gone to the next level. This does have a visual effects nomination and win written all over it. The lightsaber battles are second to none, and there are plenty of them to go around. Ian McDiarmid in this film is incredible. I felt his character was a bit too happy and eager in the opening moments, but it's corrected quickly and he goes the other way especially fast. I have nothing but pure joy over his addition to the saga. He nearly steals the show from Anakin and does an amazing job. Once you get to the opera scene, prepare yourself to be blown away. Other notable standouts are from Ewan McGregor, especially in the last half of the film. He truly believes the ways of the Jedi are the right path, and is willing to even take out his own apprentice who betrayed him. After the romantic scenes, I begin to really dig Hayden Christensen too. He delivers some powerful emotions later in the film that bring added depth to the character. The featured score isn't nearly as memorable as Even Across the Stars. I'm glad Duel of the Fates made a reprise, and there are some great ambient tracks at key moments that add to the tension. And let's not forget about one lengthy scene that has no music at all. Very nice. Listen for it and see if you agree. And it's always great to hear elements from the early John Williams work as well. The end of the movie was satisfying, wrapping up many loose ends and bridging the prequel classic divide nicely. Stuff you might not like as much. Natalie Portman isn't brilliant in this film. She just can't seem to pull off her character. The Kashyyyk battle is way too short. If you saw all of the trailers and the Episode 3 footage that Rick McCallum showed at the celebration, then unfortunately you've seen much of it. It was so stunning, it's too bad we didn't get to see more of it. Overall, this is a great Star Wars film. The best of the prequels without question. In many fans' minds, this will fall under Empire and A New Hope, and I think that's a fair analysis. A powerful movie that you'll not want to miss, weakened by one vulnerable act and a few nitpicky problems. I saw it once today, and I'm already anxious to see it again. You will be too. That wraps up Josh's review. I don't have a whole lot to add here, except that if you're keeping up with spoilers, I recommend you go to theforce.net and read the entire review. I had to skip a lot here as to avoid spoilers. Here's Garth Franklin from the very cool movie website darkhorizons.com. He writes, as one of the seemingly few net reviewers with no real love of Star Wars, old or new, I was born in 78, so it was a few years before my time. The good word is, Revenge of the Sith is actually a refreshingly good film overall, and easily the best of the prequels. Like the other two, it remains a rather hokey and stilted affair that lacks the warm fun and smoothness of the original trilogy, but I am glad to say that it is a big step up from the simply woeful Phantom Menace and the run-of-the-mill Attack of the Clones. While the acting, story, and humor remains clunky and flat, Sith is an enjoyable spectacle with glossy visuals and a refreshingly dark and sinister tone. The alien environments look glorious, the loose threads are for the most part effectively tied up, and while quite a few moments are laughably bad, others approach greatness. There's one scene where Anakin and Padme are on separate balconies looking out at the city and with the weight of the world on their shoulders. The looks, the sunset, and John Williams' superb score swell to deliver a moment that feels like great filmmaking on hand. Why does this one work so much better than the other two? Simple, really. Not much in the way of padding. Oh sure, there are moments thrown in which look cool yet aren't needed, but for the most part, the action actually ties in with the plot. Whereas the last two felt like they were all too strung out, Sith remains a tight affair as it rushes to move events along toward the way the original 1977 Star Wars began. In fact, Lucas does a commendable job of essentially covering all the bases, leaving very few elements dangling. The other thing is, he seems to have learned his lessons from the last two a little, as have most of the crew. The result is the effects are the best yet, the action feels more relevant, and the performances, while still subpar at times, actually seem a tad more genuine. As an audience, knowing the way everything is going to end actually adds to the movie's feeling of inevitable tragedy. The darker sensibility and actions, many of which take place off-screen unfortunately, is a big bonus too, as it finally feels like we're watching a Star Wars movie that takes some chances again. Still, it wouldn't be a Star Wars prequel without a raft of problems, and many of them haven't gone away. The romance is still awkwardly bad, not helped by either actor. Portman and McGregor are capable of so much more, and yet they've both been heavily hampered in these movies. McGregor seems to snap out of it at times, but Portman, stuck in a stay-at-home wife role this time around, seems bored. Christensen's acting has gone from wooden soap opera level to very average mainstream, thankfully toning down the attempts at ranting and trying for something a little more understated this time. The motives for Anakin's inevitable fall from grace do seem ultimately a bit rushed and unbelievable, though some of the film's better moments comes from the prequel trilogy's real quiet achiever, Ian McDiarmid, as Palpatine. While McDiarmid does go way over the top with some lines he delivers, others strike with real resonance, and it's great to finally get to see him in some action in both the physical and narrative sense of the word. Kudos to Lucas for sticking the aliens in the background and letting the human drama dominate this time around. Jar Jar has a 3-second silent cameo, and C-3PO has 3 lines, and none of them are bad jokes. The alien environments are also much better and much more imaginative. A lava planet, a civilization built inside a giant sinkhole, a giant forest swamp, and of course Coruscant. True, much of it still reeks of blue screen CG creations with people inserted in them, but for the most part they work. There are many elements of this harkening back to the original trilogy, some working better than others. The ships, the clothing, and music all feel much more like the original trilogy than the other two. While the effects are spectacular, the action doesn't help to enhance it at times. The wide shots look splendid, but much of the time Lucas frustratingly cuts to awkward and very tight close-ups. The result is, in these high-speed battle scenes and in the duels as well, one almost gets nausea from all the flashing lights and moving camera. There's simply too much going on, and we're focused in on one little segment which undermines the scale of these scenes. One thing that hasn't changed, though, is the humor. It's as forced and flat as ever. There's one, maybe two odd laughs, but the other jokes are so painful it's cringe-inducing. Thankfully, the film stays relatively dark, so the humor isn't needed. As I've said before, the problem with this franchise, more than any other series, is that everyone comes into this with different preconceptions. More than any other science fiction tale, the Star Wars movies inspire a level of unconditional love or bitterness amongst reviewers. The former, the lovers, deliberately ignore the giant flaws that they would take other films to task on, and the latter, the haters, over-exaggerate the problems with which they would otherwise ignore in other movies this summer. These are popcorn movies, and so the bigger fan you are, the stronger your level of enjoyment or loathing will be. As a sci-fi fan who really likes A New Hope, loves Empire, enjoys Jedi, hated Phantom, and tolerated clones, I found I enjoyed Sith. It certainly doesn't validate the first two prequels, but it's the only one of the trilogy that actually works as both a good summer movie and a solid sci-fi movie in its own right. It's a shame that just as the Star Wars universe is finally getting interesting again, it has to go away. And that's the end of Garth's review. Looking back at it, I think I may have read the vast majority of his review, so hopefully if he finds out, he's not too upset about it. But I simply had to include this review. Not only does it give us a look at the film from someone who's not a diehard Star Wars fan, but Garth's reviews are normally very intelligent and articulate. If you're into movies in general and you haven't checked out darkhorizons.com, you should go bookmark it. It's a great site, and the least I can do for using his review here is give him a good plug. I've got two celebrity reviews for you as well. The first is from Edgar Wright, director of Shaun of the Dead. And the second one is from someone whom I believe is a friend of his, Kevin Smith. First up, though, here's Edgar's review, which I had to edit a little bit for language. Fear not, Sith happens. Having just seen Revenge of the Sith, it is my happy duty to report to you that it does not suck. Finally, after 6 years of criticism, Lucas clearly has a firework up his butt and delivers. If the first two films had only a smattering of tingle moments, Darth Maul and Yoda Fu, then this has at least 20. When it finished, I could only think of one word: finally. The only sad aspect is that you wish he could go back and make episodes 1 and 2 better, or maybe delete them as he did the original versions of 4, 5, and 6. There are minor quibbles and annoyances, but these mostly peter out after the first half hour. Not to give away any spoilers, but I really could have done without the unnecessary comedy relief of the battle droids in the opening action sequence. The set piece otherwise kicks butt, but why oh why do the droids all have to sound like voices from Johnny 5? After that, the film takes on a darker tone, and even though there's still clunky dialogue to come, it doesn't seem to matter, because loads of stuff happens. All of the action in Sith works better because there's something at stake. We never feel like we're treading water and watching an 8-year-old play out wacky races in the desert for no apparent reason other than to sell Xbox games. Plus, people die. A lot. The body count is hugely impressive. There's also a curious feeling to the film in that, along with the high drama and high tragedy, there's a much bigger sense of fun. When you get to the final moments of Sith, you feel like you've watched a really good soap opera or a Bollywood film. Vader's big moment is especially like this. It's cliched, it's silly, it's camp, but it rocks. I shall say no more other than that Ian McDiarmid steals the film, the mouse robots are back, and the Godfather 2 style of cross-cutting is a bundle of fun. Okay, that's the end of Edgar's review, and I gotta say, while I didn't mind Episode 2 that much, I like Edgar's idea of deleting the first 2 prequel movies and starting over. The special editions were a little early for such complaints, but when the DVDs for the original trilogy finally came out, I was screaming, "Hey George, you fixed the wrong films." I'm really hoping I come out of Episode 3 feeling like Edgar did. Yeah, the film wasn't flawless, but it was right. It had problems, but it was right. This is what Episode 3 was supposed to be. Here's our final review by none other than Kevin Smith. Many of you know who Kevin Smith is. For those who don't, he's the guy who did Clerks, Chasing Amy, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Dogma, and a few other films. He's a big Star Wars fan, and there's a rumor going around that he may be involved in the upcoming Star Wars live-action television series. Here's the review he recently posted on his blog site. I'm going to have to do a lot of censoring here, both for language and spoiler content, but here we go. Revenge of the Sith is, quite simply, freaking awesome. This is the Star Wars prequel the haters have been whining for since Menace came out, and if they don't cop to that when they finally see it, they're lying. As dark as Empire was, this movie goes 1,000 times darker. Ian McDiarmid and Ewan McGregor steal the show, but Hayden Christensen silences any naysayers who wrote him off as too whiny and clones. This is the flick that feels closest to episodes 4, 5, and 6, and because, for the first time since Return of the Jedi, there's a clear villain. Look, this is a movie I was genetically predisposed to love. I remember being 8 years old and reading in Starlog that Darth Vader became the half-man, half-machine he was following a duel with Ben Kenobi that climaxed with Vader falling into molten lava. Now, 26 years later, I finally got to see that long-promised battle, and it lived up to any expectations I still held. I was sad to see the flick end, but happy to know it's not the end of the Star Wars universe entirely. I've read stuff about a TV show. Sith doesn't happen. Sith rules. And that wraps up Kevin's review. And he just had to go and tease us about that TV show, didn't he? Alright, that's it for this podcast, but here's a little glimpse of things to come. I know I've mentioned that I've got more interviews from C3 to post, but I've got to get some of the audio footage mailed to me, so they'll be delayed a little while. In the meantime, I'm going to be concentrating on Episode 3's release. I'll be setting up 2 roundtable discussions shortly, one dealing with the various plot threads that tie the 6 movies together, with the specific focus on Episode 3, and another about the television series. I'm also working on getting a part-time co-host, maybe 2. And I've got a couple of other things up my sleeve too, so for those who have been asking about whether we'll still be doing the podcast after Episode 3 comes out, the answer is yes. We're just getting started. I want to thank you guys for the emails you sent in about the television series. I'm going to be addressing several of those during the roundtable discussion, but for now I'd also like to hear your thoughts on what questions you want Episode 3 to answer for you, or if you've kept up with the spoilers, what questions you're upset that it doesn't answer. You can send these answers, along with any questions or comments, to podcast@theforce.net. As a reminder, the opinions expressed in this podcast belong to myself and the aforementioned reviewers, and they do not necessarily represent the views of any other TFN staff members, nor that of Lucasfilm. TheForce.net is not affiliated with Lucasfilm in any way. Until next time, take care, and may the Force be with you.